Yeah, so I'm going to hand it over to Martin, so it's pretty self-explanatory what he's going to be talking about. So.
So, welcome everyone. My name is Martin. Today I will tell you about practical things of doing Sitecore with Helix. So during this session I will be mostly focused on Helix. I'm doing it with Sitecore 9, namely 9.0.90 update 1. So we will recap some parts about Sitecore 9 as a difference. We will go through Helix stuff. I mostly take you through some life hacks and tips that make your life easier. So during the last event, my colleague Peter Nazarov, he has made a nice presentation on theoretical Helix. So my mouse was gone. Sorry. So that was his presentation. And now I will tell you more about practical things. But before we go ahead, I want to recap some theoretical part. So in Helix we have 3 primary layers: project, feature, and foundation. That's how we manage dependencies. The entire point of things not to make spaghetti code. So in very basics, you are not allowed to have relationships between modules at the same layer. Namely, some feature cannot reference another feature, some project cannot another reference project, but that is allowed with foundation. So because foundations can be, I personally was thinking about making in 2 layers of foundation, like low-level foundation and high-level foundation, but I think that's too enough. So with templates, with Helix we do consistent templates. So this is how we do project agnostic templates. So a very good example would be probably to show is project definition item. So if we take a look, I have a solution with 2 websites running here, help desk and personal. So help desk is website definition, and if we take a look on its template, oh yeah, you are not seeing. Nice. So what we have is this item is site definition. So if you go to its template, it's of type site root, and it sits under project. So you go here, and you see it consists of 3 other templates. In reality, in Habitat there will be much more, but this is a very simplified solution. And those templates with underscore, they are called, how they called, by the way? Definition templates. So they are sitting from feature, and basically you may treat that like an interface. So in that case we combine functionality from features into one project. So that's it. So also with renderings, we have data source configuration aiming the same purpose. That allows not to have feature. So project does not reference a specific feature directly. So what you do instead, you create token. It's not seen. Oh my God.
You can read it.
So yeah. Dynamic. So you create a token Sitecore and dynamic teaser, and then you create a data source configuration that points to data source location and data source template, and that happens under the project. So feature itself is unaware about the project. For the file structure, Helix also is quite strict, so your source code is kept under SRC folder. You have 3 subfolders: foundation, feature, and project. Then you have feature module name, and under module name you have code, test, and serialization, whether it is TDS or Unicorn. So if that is TDS, you will have TDS project. If that's Unicorn, you will have just serialization folder. So the idea is that everything that works together keeps together and ships together. That's an idea of Helix. So that's why we have unit tests all together with each of the modules and testing only that particular functionality for that particular module. One important thing to say is you should serialize only definition items. So in Helix we have 2 types of items. We have content items, that's what content editors create, and we have definition items, that's what developers mostly create. So templates and standard values as well, renderings, that all is that's all definition items. And for example, website home page is a content item, so that should not be serialized. And different types of items, they go through different life cycle. Definition items are created by developers, and content items are created on content delivery server by content authors who come from production. So you shouldn't mix them both. So for the quick start, we have how do we start doing Helix? Several options. Despite people say do not use Habitat as Sitecore Habitat as foundation, I think there's nothing wrong doing that. Of course, if you do that responsibly, so you need to wipe out all the feature layers and of course projects. So mostly you will leave some of foundation layers and all the plumbing required for building the solution. And the good principle here that I would advise is substitution principle. So if you have some foundation module, if you can substitute it with the same module shipped by NuGet, in that case, that's quite okay. So I would advise not to change foundation layer modules, and rather than extend them where applicable, so that maybe in future that will be indeed shipped through NuGet. There's also a few other options. I know Helix base done by a guy from Liverpool, Neil Shack, and there's also Sitecore Elysium, also starters for Helix. So at the end of our session, I will show you the slide with all the references. So you all may take a photo and go through that when you have more time. So how would you install Helix on Sitecore 9? Before we go, can you guys raise hands who have used Sitecore 9? Plenty. And Helix? Plenty. And all together? Few. Alright, so basically you're familiar with folder structure of Helix solution. But there are a few changes. I think the very good way to start is, again, as I mentioned, Habitat. You may grab a branch. There is a specific branch named feature v9 that has unmerged, not quite ready, but still version of Habitat that works with Sitecore 9. That may save you plenty of time because it has proper installer, and you don't need to spend much time. And installation script, it has many issues you face during normal installation of Sitecore 9, so they are already sorted in that script. And also it's quite useful because many new features are coming with time, like federated authentication recently came within that feature branch for Sitecore 9. And that's quite a booster for all of us, for community, so that we can play with that already and see how it works. So thanks to Habitat guys. Anyway, you still need the same prerequisites to install Sitecore 9 with Helix. So we are using Sitecore installation framework with PowerShell, so you need to install the module and import that, of course. You will need to have Solr of that particular version, which is 6.6.2. It works in Java runtime, so that's another one dependency you will need to have. SQL Server 2016, that's what you need as well. A couple more things, DAG framework web deploy, that needs for deployment over installation process. Node.js is required to run GULP script, and normal MongoDB, at least in current versions. They suggested that they will do support for that later, but not yet available. So, I have a small demo, by the way. That's a small video. I will share the link to it in the end of the session. So, basically, I recorded a video of how to install Sitecore 9 with Helix all together from the very beginning. And you see I'm using CINS, that chocolate tool. Very, very handy. So if you are not familiar with that, please allocate some time to learn it. So that can install any type of software on Windows, most of the programs, and just as simple as CINS and the name of the package. Similar like guys have that on Linux and on Mac. Now we have that on Windows. So I recorded the entire process. The video spent 5 minutes, so we are not having this time, but the link will be available. So I scroll to the minute 7. Yeah, that's the entire process for those who haven't seen that. Let's talk now about folder structure. So FirstRC is the same as you have in previous versions, feature foundation project. That's your source code. You now got build folder, and that's where your Sitecore 9 assets sit. And assets folder itself is something you would not include under your source control, because it has Sitecore license, it has installers, and JSON scripts that are used to install by Sitecore installation framework. And when you will, this particular example runs initial version of Sitecore 9. So when you upgrade to 9.01 or update 1 as we call it, you will just drop another installers here, and you will update Sitecore installation framework through PowerShell, and that's what you need to do. And one more thing, of course. We have a settings file. So in that settings file, you will need to change the version. That's probably the main file for Helix and Sitecore 9, so that you have everything you need, all the paths, database, say passwords. It won't, so the website will not use that password. That needs only for installation purposes. But the password that we'll use also is specified here. So that's the version you're going to install, and installer version. So when you do update 1, you just change to 1.1.0, and you change that prefix of zip archives you're going to install. So that's quite an important file. Okay, let's go ahead. Another important thing in Helix is GULP script. So who used Helix before is familiar with that script, and this is very important. That does deployment of, let's say, your artifacts into your web folder where your Sitecore runs. So you have your source code separately from your website, and the GULP script compiles your source code, does any additional procedures, runs Unicorn, and copies the assets on top of your web folder, so that your web folder contains Sitecore and your build changes. So that's why it's very important to familiarize yourself with default and deploy tasks. Those are consistent, so you will be using default as developer on your development instance, and deploy task will be likely used for continuous integration. You also can run subtasks individually, just clicking each of them. So you may, for example, publish just only all the features, and you can deploy, and you can do everything of the top. And one more thing I want to mention is GULP config js.user file. So when you are going to use continuous integration, your GULP config will be shipping the source control to your build server, and that's where it will work. So you'll have settings according to your build server, and user is the file that's likely to sit into git ignore, and it won't go under source control, and it won't ship to build server, but that's where you have your own development settings, so that will differ. And the script is written in such a manner so that if you have this file, it takes this instead of normal GULP config. Couple tips. So useful hotkeys. This saves me so much time. So number one is attached to IIS. So instead of going to find debug menu in Visual Studio, going through menus, find process, find W3 process, and which sits at the end of the list. So do all this hell. It's so nice to assign combination Shift and I, where I stands for IS, and with those combinations, just enter debugger. Saves so much time, so I highly recommend. Another task, so task runner. Normally during the course of the day, I run GULP script like 50 times, maybe 20, quite many. So I also assign a key to run task runner by the hotkey. And another life hack is just to publish single file. So if, for example, you are doing making change in a view, you don't need to run entire script for build script to build everything and copy into your web folder. So with ReSharper, you can hit Alt and do semicolon and P, and that will publish just that particular file into a web root. So that's done by publish targets, and quite handy. So that particular file will go there, and an example of view that will not recycle your instance, and you won't spend time on refreshing the page. So who is using GlassMapper? My graduates are using GlassMapper? Yes, no? Sometimes. I do use GlassMapper, and that's why I want to show you one more exercise, how to use GlassMapper with Helix, and how to use it not just on its own, but with code generation. So the exercises that we have interface templates, remember those I demonstrated starting with underscore, that are in feature layer, and how to turn these templates into C# interfaces that becomes a view models, and you can use these view models directly into your view. So how to save much time on doing this exercise. So let me show you my Visual Studio. So I have a feature called navigation, and I have this underscore link template that, as I remember, contains only one link. and I have this. So this file is T4 template. So just look at the magic. As soon as I do save, I've got all these interface templates for that module created. So currently it pulls dependencies as well. So if I got here, all that has been generated, and that's my interface. So I can pass this interface right inside of you. Only what I require. So yeah, I'm using this module. And again, if you are using this trick multiple times in a day, you will find this saving your time. So how to make it work? I put glass mapper onto foundation layer right here, and all the configs. So when you add glass mapper, it usually adds corresponding configuration files into your include folder. So I use it here on foundation layer, and I'm referencing foundation glass mapper from any feature project that I need to have glass mapper. And code generation is here. I put it outside of feature project and foundation. So I have tools, and that's actually those templates. It's standard T4 logic, so you can implement any logic you want. And that's how it sits in Sitecore. So templates, feature, underscoring, yeah, that has everything. Nice trick. So common mistakes and issues. What can be wrong while working with Sitecore? Very simple, very obvious. GULP script becomes unavailable, and that's very simple. Just do npm install. Of course, if you have Node already installed, so if not, you know how to use Chocolate to install Node, and then do npm install. That will run and install all the required modules that are referenced. Okay. Quite often you may get your solution built and the website root broken. That occurs because by any mistake while adding new feature, you forgot to set copy local to false for the web config. So what eventually happens is a web config, as it sits at the top root of your feature, by GULP script, it's just simply taken and being copied at the root of your web folder. And guess what happens? It overrides a Sitecore web config file, and nothing works. Nothing eventually works. So that's really bad. Always make sure copy local set to false. Glitches, bugs, false positives from not cleaning the web root. That's following my previous point. For sanity purposes, it's always nice to clean the web root. So you deploy your code on clean. Of course, you won't do that every time. And if you're just incrementing functionality, very unlikely that you will break something. But if you're doing more complex things, for example, renaming modules or doing other things, you may end up in a situation like you will have the same namespace met twice or same files overwrite each other. So it's better to clean the web root. So there are numerous tricks how to do that. You may use GULP, but I will further ahead. I will show you much trickier way how to do that. So yeah, often you can get false positive. So you think everything works while it won't work if you pass that through continuous integration. And that again, because you haven't deleted your previous version and in other files that may reference that. So something you forgot to do and you think your site works, deploy it somewhere, and client tells you it's not. So we are running against .NET 4.6.2, so that's the version of .NET should be there. Make sure nothing else is apart from that version. And also avoid using other DLLs from past versions. So in my experience, I used to migrate projects and I had some issues like Sitecore from version 8.2 was referencing. And when you do reference from NuGet, you usually use references that ends with suffix no references, so that you install only that functionality and not pull all the dependencies. And in my situation, I was having kernel from version 8.2 and pulling all the dependencies, which was very, very unclear. Okay, yeah. Another thing that was quite annoying to me is debugging with IS Express. So make sure you set your projects run from local IIS, which you I believe run, because when you have IS Express setting left, and that's default, it will pull all the IIS debugging menus in your task viewer somewhere in the top bottom corner, and that will seriously affect your performance. So get rid of that. Yes, when you install Sitecore and for some reason it halfway succeeded and then stuck with an error, and you try to reinstall and it doesn't, potential reason can be that not all the databases have been removed from that unsuccessful installation. So the resources will be linked to my blog, and there are tricks about how SQL tricks you may do with Sitecore, and that will be a script that deletes and removes all these dummy databases. For example, Xconnect process hold marketing automation, and that's how I understand, and this database not being removed, so you need to get rid of that before next installation. You may likely do that manually, so make sure there are no databases. And about clean webroot, as I mentioned, the trick is that you create a separate branch. I call it, for example, Sitecore files _cm, that keeps CM files. And that branch will be with your code repository, but a bit standalone. So what you do, you put clean installation of Sitecore just before you even access the website for the first time. Just bring it under source control as is. Of course, you don't do some logs or index files, you move them into gitignore. And that keeps the state of initial Sitecore. So imagine you then do some deployment on top with GULP script, and that deployment was not quite well. You want to just simply restore file system to clean Sitecore installation. With Git, it's so easy. You just do two commands. So you do git reset hard, that restores all your version files to its initial version, previous version, which is clean installation. And then you do git clean -fdx, which will remove all non-version files. Again, as you may see, if you enter Sitecore, it will create icon caches, logs, indexes, and pretty much of that. So that will restore exactly the same version. And there are a couple benefits of this approach. So, for example, you may see everything that has been deployed after you're running GULP script on clean. So you may compare different versions. So when you do version upgrade, for example, I did from 9.0 to 9.0 update 1, I can track two commits and see the difference what Sitecore guys created in between those two versions. It helps troubleshooting continuous integration and other benefits. Also, you may be interested how to upgrade Helix from version 8 to version 9. So what you need to consider. So first of all, there's no more MongoDB. I personally like that. Second, Xconnect. Now we work with Xconnect that sits under separate website record under your IIS. And if you previously have the code, have you written the code to manage contacts? So there will be plenty of if else, depending on context state. So instead of all that, you now do using Xconnect and Xconnect client and just do what you need to do. This code needs to be written and Sitecore extensions. Then you may watch, check your configs because field names may be modified after change from Lucene and some facets. Also, we don't have any more dynamic placeholder in Foundation, now it's built in. What else? And of course, thanks to Sitecore, we don't have web forms for marketers anymore. That was really a big pain. Now we have experience forms. And what we may consider, whether you do a greenfield solution or migrate existing websites, if the second, how do you do that? So I would personally advise to place everything on the project layer and then start, if you have another website, you start unifying functionality and extract features and extract foundation step by step, but at least you have something achievable easily. You also need to consider CI/CD, how you will do that with Helix and Sitecore, whether you will go to Asia or in premises or any other options. Depending on that, it also varies how you will do and structure your solution. Nice hint is zero deploy from TDS. So the trick is that you don't need to warm up the instance anymore after you rebuild and redeploy the code. Not sure how it works with Helix. I personally haven't tried, but that may work. The idea is that you specify your code. You have abstraction layer that is referenced from your website, and you have concrete implementation that you are modifying, and that is shipped right into Sitecore database. So DLLs are stored from Sitecore database. That's why you don't need to recycle that pool. So that's it. We have resources. You are welcome to take screenshots. Everything I was talking about is here, or you may download it later. Finally, a few more things. If you are using Telegram Messenger, please subscribe to the channel. All Sitecore news are there. Another project I'm doing in my free time called Sitecore Link. All the knowledge base about Sitecore, all the pieces of information, very nicely classified, you may get it there. And there's another one type of events called Sitecore Discussion Club. That's more it's more closed club with less members, but people who are very actively participate. So if you are interested in trying that, please contact me later afterwards. So I'll bring back to resources, and thank you very much.